Hello guys and welcome to my next solo guide for 2019. So before I kick the video off, I just want to mention that this is a next solo guide using ranged only and banking every kill, as that's very easy to do and probably the best way to kill next. And with that being said, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax and enjoy. Nex is a high level boss, and for Nex I recommend 90 plus combat stats, 70 plus prayer, higher is recommended for curses, 67 plus summoning for a BOB familiar or a shadow nihil, 96 plus herblore for overloads and the combination potions, adrenaline potions and more, and especially for the ranged armor you want tier 80 plus, preferably tier 90 ranged weapons and armor, because this is a very hard boss with lower tier ranged weapons and armor. And of course the sharpshooter or reckless aura, but I'll list these again in the useful items section. So for the useful items, a ring of vigor of course for your ultimate switch, augmented gear, adrenaline potions, overloads, and then we get to onslaughts. Now this ability is extremely useful and can be obtained by buying a Mazcab ability codex on the Grand Exchange. This ability will get you through the blood phase, which we're going to be talking about later on in this video, very easily most of the time. Without this ability, Nex is a lot harder to get through because of the blood phase, unless you're very good at DPSing. Anyways, Shadow Nihil familiar or a BOB familiar, the Reckless and Sharpshooter aura, Enhanced Excalibur, very useful for extra healing, and of course for the onslaught ability. Precriminal bolts E are also very much recommended, like the ruby ones if you're using ascensions. If you're not using ascensions, you cannot use these, for example with a Noxious Longbow. But if you are using ascensions for Nex, Precriminal bolts E or enchanted are amazing for this boss. I also highly recommend a shield bow switch. Well, you pretty much need a shield switch for the ice phase, and the Stone of Jazz buff is also useful for extra damage and any other buffs that you have. But things you really want to have are the onslaught ability and a shield bow switch. Now, getting there, how do you actually get inside the next room? Well, all you require is a frozen key with charges and a ancient ceremonial robe set. Now you can buy the robe set off the Grand Exchange, and this way you can negate the kill count when entering the next boss room. Now you can make a frozen key by getting all the pieces from the Bandos, Zamorak, Armadil and Saradomin minions, which means you need 4 pieces to create the key, and then you can get additional charges by repairing it at Bob in Lumbridge. Now I'll be showing you guys how to walk there in just a second, but all you really need if you have a max cape is the boss portal tuned to Nex, and then a preset using the frozen key and ancient ceremonial set, and this way you'll be teleported right inside the boss room of Nex. Now on screen are 2 preset examples. The first is if you do have a max cape and you can load that preset in the max shield, and the second is if you have the Trollheim teleport, but you can also use a God Wars Dungeon teleport tab if you have completed the Mighty Fall quest, I believe. Anyways, however you get there, if it's rock climbing boots, teleport or a max cape, you need a preset with the frozen key and some magic logs for a bonfire to get that bonfire boost going. As in the next boss room, there's actually a bank. Now on the right you can actually see my preset I was using for Nex. Of course I'm using a Blood Amulet of Fury. A better amulet would probably be the Reaper Necklace or Amulet of Souls. Anyways, that's just my gear setup. I have some food, a Ring of Vigor switch, my Dark Bow switch, a rune pouch for vulnerability, some Saradomin brews to tick eat, which is extremely useful for the ice phase or if you want to heal up fast, Holy Overload potion, Super Prey renewal, and adrenaline potion for the Blood or Zaros phase if I need some extra adrenaline. There's actually a variety of different gear setups you can use it next, but I just recommend tier 90 plus armor and weapons. Tier 80 plus is the minimum. Again, if you want to learn Nex and you're struggling with ranged and running away, I'm just going to say this right now, use a Noxious Longbow instead of Ascensions if you have both, because this way you can kite Nex easier, and once you learn Nex you can use Ascensions. For the example, I will be using a Noxious Longbow later on in this guide. On screen now is a clip of me going to the next area. If you already know how to get there, just skip ahead in this video. So let's talk about Nex and the arena. Once you enter the arena, there are a few minions around you once Nex spawns. Nex always spawns in the middle, initiating the first phase being the smoke phase. Every time Nex reaches a certain amount of life points, you will have to kill a minion to initiate the start of the next phase. Nex has 5 phases. The first phase is the smoke phase, and you just don't want to get dragged into Nex. You want to be praying magic and anticipating right before the kill starts. You then have the shadow phase, which is a run and gun phase, as I like to call it. You want to always be praying ranged and running away from Nex, avoiding the shadow traps. I'll be getting more in depth into this phase later on in the video. You then have the blood phase, where you want to be praying magic, and this is pretty much the DPS phase, except for bleeding abilities, as bleed abilities will heal Nex in this phase. Then you have the ice phase, the second harder phase of Nex. You want to be praying magic, and this is what I call the timing phase, as you want to be ready to freedom, equip your shield, resonance, and put your magic prayer back on while healing and stuff, which I'll get into later on in the video. And then finally the Zaros phase, which is also a DPS phase, but this time you don't have to stress too much about it, as it's a very easy phase. So, getting more in depth into the phases, this is the smoke phase, the first phase of Nex being a very easy phase. The attack rotation is pretty simple. The virus ability can poison you, then 4 times auto attack, no escape ability, 4 times auto attack, and repeat. You want to be focusing on dealing damage and praying magic. The end of the phase starts at 160,000 life points once you've killed the minion. Now what I like to do is get adrenaline on the minion itself before the kill starts on this phase. You can just use your defensive abilities and stuff as long as you end with the anticipation ability right before you attack Nex, because otherwise you will be dragged in and your prayer will be kicked off and you have to, put it back on. You just want to avoid this as much as you can. Alternatively, you can also get 100% adrenaline before the kill starts on a dummy in the boss room, and then enter the arena and use the defensive abilities to keep your 100% adrenaline, and right as Nex spawns, you use Death Swiftness to deal a lot of damage, getting her down to that 160k life points threshold much faster so that you can kill the minion. Other than that, this phase is really easy. So when you get Nex down to 160k life points, you want to go to this minion as seen on screen and kill him. This will then initiate the shadow phase once you attack Nex afterwards. Now the shadow phase isn't particularly hard either. All you want to be doing is keeping your distance from Nex. Her attack rotation is either starting with shadow traps if she's phased, otherwise darkness, then shadow traps, and then 4 times auto attack, and then traps, and she repeats it. Now you want to be focusing on DPSing her down as much as possible and keeping your ranged prayer up. If you stand too close to Nex during darkness, she will actually apply a bleed on you. This bleed does quite a lot of damage. Anyways, get Nex down to 120,000 life points and then kill the minion as seen on screen. But you actually want to have 100% adrenaline before you start the blood phase, aka finishing off the minion. As the next phase, you will require 100% adrenaline for either Death Swiftness, if you do not have the Onslaught ability, or to use Onslaught. What I personally do during Shadow phase is run Nex around the arena, and then once I come back round to the blood phase minion, which I'll have to kill, I'll have her down to 120k life points, and then I'll just keep my adrenaline up high, sometimes sip an extra adrenaline potion, and then once the minion is dead, get ready to use Onslaught on Nex. So, the blood phase, the hardest phase of Nex to do solo, especially if you're a beginner, and even more so if you do not have Onslaught, like I experienced myself. So 99% of the time, the attack rotation of Nex will be Siphon Summon, 3 times auto attack, Blood Sacrifice, 3 times auto attack, and repeat. Now when the blood phase starts, she starts with a Siphon 99% of the time, like I said. You want to wait till she opens her wings, and then click her, auto attack with an arrow, then use Snipe, and then use your Onslaught ability or your other ultimates if you do not have Onslaught, but Onslaught is amazing for this phase. You can see a slow motion of this happening on screen. If this does not work out the first time and you don't get her down to 80,000 life points to end the phase and letting you attack the minion, you have to run away from her during the blood sacrifice. Just don't get near to her. Then you just want to try again or just DPS her down using thresholds. This can be very tedious and sometimes may take you a few sacrifices or siphons the first time you do this, making it a very long and slow kill. This is again why I highly suggest you get yourself that onslaught ability, because when I personally did Nex for the first time myself, I didn't have it and it was so damn annoying to do the blood phase, but when I got the onslaught ability, I got the blood phase down in one go 4 out of 5 times. Once you've got her down to 80,000 life points, you can initiate the ice phase by killing the minion. Be ready and do not use your freedom and anticipation abilities by accident, as you'll be needing these for the next phase. What you can do before you start the ice phase though, is use anticipation if you're unlucky to avoid the first ice prison. Now the ice phase is not that hard unless you don't know what to do or you have very slow internet and you lag, then you'll probably die. Now the attack rotation depends on if she ended on a siphon or on a blood sacrifice in the blood phase. Anyways, the two things you want to focus on during this phase are the ice prison and contain attacks. You want to keep your magic prayer up at all times, but during the ice prison your magic prayer will actually be kicked off. And if you stand too close to Nex when she says contain this, the ice spikes will stun you and turn off your magic prayer as well. At that point you want to run away from Nex and put your magic prayer back on. I'll be showing you guys how to avoid an ice prison in a second, as the ice prisons are the main hard part about this phase. When Nex says die now in a prison of ice, you're about to be ice prisoned. If you've anticipated before this, you will not be stunned, otherwise use the escape ice prison order you see on screen now. Freedom, equip your bow, using a keybind if you want to, and use resonance. Then put on your magic prayer and eat away to heal back up. The resonance is not for the initial hit of the ice prison, as you cannot dodge this damage, but it is there to shield you from the next magic auto attack coming right after the ice prison, which can KO you if you're on low HP. Having resonance on your first spot of your action bar is extremely useful, because this way if you equip your shield bow, you'll automatically be using resonance if you have revolution turned on, making the ice prisons even easier. If you're somewhat decent at Nex, I think you can get it down in just about 2 ice prisons, then just kill the minion and initiate the Zaros phase. Now, once the Zaros phase starts, Nex will heal herself up to 75k life points. Now the attack rotation is pretty simple. It's basically just Nex using auto attacks while switching prayers between melee, soul split and turmoil. The only one that's really relevant to you because you are soloing using ranged is the soul split prayer. If Nex hits you with soul split on, she will actually heal from that attack. This way it will take longer to finish the Zaros phase. But you can just use Death Swiftness and just DPS her down and negate the soul split entirely. Though running around might be easier if you have lowered combat stats. And of course, after this phase, or after this pool of life points, Nex will be dead and you will have your first Nex kill. Now, when Nex dies, she will actually activate Wrath, trying to take you down with her. Just keep your distance and you will totally negate this damage. Anyways, with that being said, I hope you guys have the basics of the mechanics down and you know what to do. Now let's cover a full Nex kill without any cuts whatsoever. Let's go. So, starting off the Nex kill with 100% adrenaline. If you do not have adrenaline, build up on the minion. Then end with anticipation to be ready and not get dragged in during the smoke phase. Pray magic during this phase. As you guys can see, after overloading and once anticipation is off cooldown, I use anticipation before starting the kill and then use my ultimate ability. This does a lot of damage and I immediately go and stand next to the minion, as this way the minion will be closer to you once you get Nex down to 160,000 life points. Now I don't know for sure, but much like the Zaros phase and the minions, Nex might have a soft cap during the smoke phase. Use your bleeds as often as possible. Now I'm just going to speed up a little part of this because it's just me doing damage. I have now reached 160k life points and I can start killing the first minion. Using bleeds or rapid fire on the minion is highly recommended as they have a soft cap. After this I attack Nex. Now the shadow phase will start. Put on your ranged prayer and watch out for the shadow traps. Now as you guys can see, I immediately start avoiding the Nex shadow traps. Now, eventually I do not avoid the bleed attack, but I do keep kiting Nex around a room, and this is what I recommend you do. This is extremely easy using a Noxious Longbow, thanks to the extra range. You just want to kite Nex around until you get to close to 120k life points, then return close to the minion. Keep in mind you want to have 100% adrenaline for the blood phase. So don't use an ultimate ability or too many thresholds on the minion, and keep in mind you want to avoid the shadow traps if they do spawn while you're killing the minion, so keep moving around if you do need to. Once you've killed the minion, immediately attack Nex if she's still stuck in the shadow phase. This will make her switch to the blood phase. Then stop attacking her as she's going to siphon her summons. Then, once she opens her wings, auto attack, snipe, and onslaught, or use a different ultimate ability if you do not have onslaught. Again, having onslaught is easier, and as said before, if you do not have 100% adrenaline, you can also use a adrenaline potion to get yourself to 100%, or when Nex is siphoning, you can use a shield ability to get some extra adrenaline without actually doing damage and healing Nex. As you guys can see, I got Nex to 80,000 life points and got through the blood phase relatively easily. Now I just go and kill the minion and then the ice phase will start. Now like said before, you want your food on your action bar to be able to tick eat, have your magic prayer up at all times during this phase, and be ready to use freedom, equip your shield bow and use resonance. Now I actually used anticipate, so I did not get stunned and did not require to use freedom because I saw the message, die now in a prison of ice, and I reacted very quickly, but I still have to equip my shield bow and use resonance and be ready to tick eat and put my magic prayer back on. After that first ice prison, Nex will be using a contain of course after the auto attacks, but again if you're keeping your distance there's really nothing to fear. And then when I'm standing very close to Nex, she whips out an ice prison, but again I just escape like that. Now I'm going to be slowing down the clip here just for a second, but what you want to be doing is doing as much damage as you can while avoiding the ice prisons and contains, then finish off the minion as fast as you can and attack Nex again, as this way she will switch to the Zaros phase quicker, and if you don't do this she can still actually ice prison you and kill you once you've killed the minion, even though the Zaros phase is about to start and she's still stuck in the ice phase. Then it's just a DPS battle until you kill Nex, keep your distance from the explosion, and there you go, Nex is dead. And on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed this Nex guide and found it helpful. If you did, please leave a like down below, as this one took a lot of effort. Even though I'm not a professional Nex killer or whatever you want to call that, I don't get 3-minute kills, I can consistently kill Nex with around 5 to 6 minute kills. And as this video was requested by a ton of you guys, I decided to make it. This was my first proper PVM guide of 2019. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys later. Peace.